Welcome to this week's edition of Hockey Unfiltered with Ken Campbell. I am the forever sidekick Dylan Waugh. I am the Abbott to Ken's Costello. You can find me on Twitter at _Dylan Waugh. You can find Ken at Ken Campbell, Ken_Campbell 27. Today we're talking about Auston Mathews, the Florida road trip, trade rumors, who's selling, and what's a good bargain buy for this year. Stick around and check it out. You know what I almost did just there?
What?
I almost ended with that thing that you hate where I almost went, stick around. And I almost did it on purpose. And then I thought, you know what? I'm not going to be a jerk today.
Today,
yes.
Okay.
Because I've got a lot to make up for. Do you know what I did last week?
No.
Last week, I made a mistake on asking a question, and then I re-recorded it.
Okay. Oh, wow. Without me here.
No.
Oh, afterwards? Or
Afterwards.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, remember I got my notes mixed up and I got tongue-tied and then I whatever. Yeah, so I edited out of the video section of the podcast, but the audio section of the podcast, everybody can hear me go, I've screwed everything up. And then the best part about that is that afterwards I say, it's okay, I'll edit it out.
Nice.
Which I did not do.
Nice. Peeling back the onion a little bit, aren't we?
Well, you know what? I figured that I would just own it.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, why not?
So how are you?
I'm great.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm suggested otherwise.
I'm more than my condition, so I'm really happy.
You're more than your condition.
I feel like the Olympics was just one big continuous commercial, and it was the same one all the time. That's not weird. Your pants are weird. You know, I'm more than my condition.
Yeah.
Like if I have to see that commercial never again, it'll be too soon.
Right.
Yeah. So anyways.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they wanted something to be entertaining at the Olympics.
That's true.
Listen, we're talking about it.
It was dull. It was dull.
It was dull.
The last two games were dull as dishwater.
Yeah.
As they say.
I'll tell you, you know, first of all, one of my favorite parts about the Olympics is watching sports and then that I've never seen before in my life, and then talking to friends as if I know everything about it. Like, oh, you know, look how he kicked that back foot in the snowboarding slightly. You know, they're going to dock him for that, or you know?
Yeah. I like the monobob. That was pretty cool. The one person bobsled. Oh, I think a bunch of people did. They were crashing into the sides and everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's that pursuit one too when they all go at the same time.
Right.
On the snowboards. That was pretty good.
Yeah. It's so scary to me because, like, you know, with a lot of things like sports and hockey especially, you can make up for mistakes. But like with a lot of those sports like snowboarding and bobsledding and whatever, it's like if you screw up your first step, done. Might as well just stop.
Yeah.
Might as well just say
4 years
whoops.
Down the crapper.
You know, you let in a bad goal in the tournament.
Yeah, you can make up for it.
Okay, you know, whatever, right? Or and even speed skating, if you got a longer track, then you can kind of try to make up for it. But with bobsledding or whatever, you take one bad step. All right, we're done here.
Yep. Let's go.
Let's go home.
4 years.
Yeah.
4 years we trained for this.
You know how I didn't have chocolate or a single McDonald's fry for 4 years? I trained my butt off. I put my school on hold. I put my career on hold for no money. And now I'm here. And, you know, my shoelace wasn't quite tight enough. We're done.
Yeah.
Should we get to hockey?
I believe we should.
Yeah. This is not an Olympics podcast.
No, I'm done with that.
Okay. Well, we are going to have a bit of a debate. I hope. I hope. We've been agreeing too much lately, and frankly, it's despicable.
It's despicable.
It's inconceivable. Over the past little while, there have been some people on social media, because we always like to listen to them.
Yeah, because you know, I mean, it's a glimpse into, you know, reality.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
No, I mean, it's a
like Dave Chappelle said.
Bias.
Like Dave Chappelle said, Twitter is not a real place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's sampling bias.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
My favorite thing is like somebody puts up a poll and says, "Do you like to respond to polls?" And yes is like 98% to no is like 2%. And that's the perfect example of sampling bias.
Right.
Because guess who responded, right? Anyways, Twitter, the not real place, has been talking about, is Mathews now better than Connor McDavid? So my question to you is, do you think this is actually the case or even close?
I think it's close. Yeah, I do think it's close.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll probably talk more eye test. You can talk more under the hood numbers.
I was thinking we'd do that in reverse for a change.
Okay, I'll do the under the hood numbers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, sure. Well, they're as we discussed, they're not quite as indicative of what people might think as what people might think.
Doesn't support the narrative.
Yeah, it doesn't really support the narrative.
Yeah.
I think it's really close. I mean, Auston Mathews is one of the best goal scorers on the planet.
Yep.
Auston Mathews, I think that we're going to talk about this. There's a perception that his defensive game is better.
Yep.
And I think part of the reason for that is he's like
a big fella.
He's a big guy, and he's Mark Stone-like in his ability to strip pucks.
Right.
And that really breaks up a lot of plays and creates a lot of offense.
Yeah. So
there's that. I mean, he's 10 points behind him in the scoring race, behind McDavid.
Yeah.
They're actually I think they're actually a lot. I think people who think that Auston Mathews is better might be surprised, and people who think that it's not even a debate might be surprised. I think they're a lot closer. I think they're a lot closer than people think.
Yeah.
And to me, not to bail here, but I mean, we don't know yet because neither of them has won anything. A damn thing.
Yeah.
Neither of them has won anything. Neither of them has, other than individual accolades, neither of these guys has accomplished anything in the NHL.
Correct.
Anything.
Yeah.
Okay? So I think we have to see those guys on a big stage being the guy, because Mathews is dried up. He dried up in the playoffs.
Big time.
And so to me,
Bill Deneau just said no.
Right? No. I'm going to be eating pizza after this
English
game.
Also means no.
Yeah. But I mean, both of these guys, I think, have a lot to prove.
Yeah.
In the playoffs. And I think that's where we are going to see the demarcation, right? Because, there was always the Sid Ovi, right? Sid versus Ovi.
Yeah.
For the longest time, Sid was kicking Ovi's ass in the playoffs.
Sid went to Ovi's house, but couldn't get something to drink because there were no cups.
Nice. Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
These jokes were running rampant.
Yeah. And for a while, Crosby was killing him on the team accolades, and then Ovechkin went out and won a cup. But
he's still too shy of Crosby.
And he's only won one. I'd like to see him win a couple more before he's obviously the greatest goal scorer in the history of the game, without question.
Correct. Yeah.
But there is that, right? So I think that once one or both of these guys starts to do something in the playoffs and starts to be a driver of team success in the playoffs, not just a guy who's there, but a guy who drives his team, who pulls up his team, who says, get on my back, let's go. We're going, we're winning this series and I'm going to win it for you. Until they start doing that, I think the jury's pretty much out still.
Yeah.
But it's close. I think it's, like I said, I think it's a lot closer than people care to admit. But I want to see what these guys can do in the playoffs.
Well, I think in our first episode, I even mentioned that I think that Mathews is the second best player in the world, and I don't think that McKinnon is necessarily part of that conversation.
Right.
And I felt like that was kind of my hot take alert. One follow-up question for you before I kind of dive into these numbers a little bit. What do you think is driving this narrative now as opposed to any other time? Because there's always been the people that have said that Mathews is better, but why do you think that this has really picked up traction now?
Well, I think it's because people are now talking about Auston Mathews as a Selke Trophy candidate. Whether that's merited or not.
Yeah.
That seems to be the perception, that he is now, rounded his game out
Yeah.
to be, a guy who's really, really reliable defensively. Not just really reliable defensively. The perception is that he is, one of the elite defensive players in the league.
Right.
So if you've got the best shot in the league, you're one of the best scorers, and you can you can defend.
Yeah.
That's the perfect player.
Oh,
right?
yeah, of course. I mean, I mentioned that about Toffoli last week.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing that I'll say is, before I jump into this a more, is that what happens, I find a lot, especially on Twitter, is that people jump into what's called microstats. So a takeaway is a microstat in the sense that it just deals with this tiny part of the game.
Yep.
You can take and hit is sort of a microstat even, right?
I'm not big on hits because big deal.
Right,
You hit
exactly.
a lot. Like, so what? That just means you don't have the puck.
I remember,
and you're hitting guys, and giveaways to me is the big one. That's a big misnomer.
Yeah.
Like look at the top 20 guys in giveaways.
Yeah.
And you're looking at probably the top 20 guys in the league.
Right. Yeah.
Because they handle the puck all the time.
Yeah.
They're always handling the puck.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Eric Carlson's best years as a defenseman.
He led the league in giveaways. I want the guy who leads the league in giveaways.
Yeah. So it's funny because I saw Habs Twitter last year going crazy about zone exits. There was somebody that was hand tracking zone exits. He was doing a great job, but they were going, well, this is the best defenseman because he's got the best zone exits or successful zone exits. But the trouble with when you look at a microstat is that it doesn't tell you how long the guy spent in his zone before he managed to exit it.
Yeah.
So looking at a larger stat like Corsi, which is showing where the actual play is going, to me is more useful than looking at something like takeaways, which, like what you're saying, is really fueling, I think, a lot of this Auston Mathews debate. Talent-wise, there's no two ways about it. Connor McDavid is the more talented player. He's just explosive. He's athletic. He's just incredible. You just watch him, and he's just a freak. Not to take anything away from Mathews. I mean, let's be honest. They're playing the NHL. They're an athletic freak to start off with, right?
Yeah.
We shouldn't take anything away from Phil Kessel in this regard, right? But Mathews has 14 defensive zone faceoffs per 60 at 5 versus 5. McDavid, has 14. Mathews has 16. So Mathews, slight edge, but neither of them are really leaned on defensively from their team. McDavid at 5 versus 5 has 2.4 expected goals against per 60. Mathews has 2. So that's good, right? Expected goals against is important. McDavid has 2.25 actual goals against per 60s. Mathews has 2.73.
Okay.
So Mathews is actually letting goals into his net at a higher rate than McDavid is at 5 versus 5. And when you consider that Jack Campbell for much of the year was a Vezina candidate
for the first half.
Yeah, but that's much of the year at this point for the first 25, 30 games, right?
20.
Okay.
I'm going 20.
Okay. I haven't looked it up, but my point is
20 starts for him. I mean, not
comparative
20 games,
to McDavid's goaltending that he's received.
Right.
All things being equal, you just look at those two goalies, you say who's supposed to be letting in goals at a higher rate?
Right.
Right?
Right.
And for no fault of their own. So, and all of this is at 5 versus 5. Now, here's what's interesting. The narrative around McDavid has been that he scores all his goals in the power play, puts up all his points in the power play, and is not a good 5 versus 5 contributor. Mathews is a good 5 versus 5 contributor. However, McDavid at 5 versus 5 has 2.6 points per 60. Mathews has 2.4. Meaning McDavid is putting up more points at 5 versus 5, scoring at a higher rate than McDavid is scoring at a higher rate than Mathews is.
Right.
So I keep on hearing the same arguments that I'm sure you're hearing. Mathews has good under the hood numbers. The thing that bothers me as kind of a guy that likes to look at those under the hood numbers is tell me what you're looking at. Right. Because I don't see it.
Okay.
Now I could be wrong because I'm not the smartest guy in the world. I ain't the sharpest tool in the bulb. Right. But at the same time, if I am wrong, explain it to me.
Right.
Explain it to me like I'm a 4-year-old.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe I'll have a chance of getting it.
Yeah.
So I think that I think Mathews is close, like you said, a lot closer to McDavid than the people that think McDavid is the best in the world will think. But I think that he's not as close as the people who think that Mathews should be the number one.
Right.
Think.
Yeah. Okay.
I think I completely agree with you. And it just it turns my stomach.
Why does it turn your stomach?
Just because nobody's going to care to watch this show if it's just two guys going, yes, I also agree.
Oh, okay.
We need ratings, Ken. We need ratings.
We need eyeballs.
We need
or
eyeballs.
ears at least.
Subscribe to the Substack, kencampbell.substack.com. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple. We're on YouTube. If you see us on YouTube, hello. Leave a comment. Leave a review. These are all things that get us ratings. And then maybe we'll argue a lot more. That's the incentive.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Now
Okay.
we're going to have to pick some real
Well,
fights.
let's argue about something then. Let's try and think of something to argue about. Anyways.
Well, the next
on.
one's probably not going to be much of an argument either. But because speaking of McDavid and his Oilers, the Oilers have a road trip coming up. They're going to be in Tampa Bay tonight, Florida on Saturday, and Carolina on Sunday. The Lightning, Panthers, and Hurricanes have a combined 56-12-6 mark on home ice this season. Has this officially become the worst road trip in the NHL?
Yeah, it's become Death Valley, right?
Yeah.
I mean, man, and like think of
Ironically, Death Valley is the easiest place to go.
But I mean, it used to be for the longest time. It used to be California. Right?
I was going to say California.
Yeah,
but
yeah. Like when LA and Anaheim and San Jose were powers in the league, and they weren't in the worst division in the league, and they were all sort of Stanley Cup contenders. That was a tough one. This one here, like, wow, you're running into three buzzsaws in a row, right?
Yeah.
Like three teams that are fast. They can score a ton. They're hard to play against.
Yeah.
And now there's people that watch them, you know. I mean, no, but I mean, Carolina's a hard building to play in.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I love how they took Carolina culture and meshed it with hockey culture. It reminds me of Los Angeles in the 90s.
Yeah.
When they took that kind of hair metal kind of culture and meshed it with the Kings, except that Carolina is actually good, and the Kings in the 90s were, I guess they had a couple Gretzky years. But,
made the final in '93, but they weren't that good.
Let's be honest here.
Yeah.
Right.
I think this is one where teams are looking at their schedule because we're in Canada, and they say those three games.
Very well, Lieutenant.
Wow. Yeah. Those three games are going to be a biatch for us.
Right.
Like I said, you know, I mean, for the most part, you know, they're all three are getting great goaltending for the most part.
Yeah.
All three they can just score. I mean, Florida, oh, wow, we're down 3-0. Big deal. You know, we'll just come back and win anyways. Right.
Yeah.
I really think that has become the dreaded trip on the calendar.
Yeah.
You know, the one that used to be Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver. That was a tough one.
Yeah.
You know, at one point, maybe New York would have been a real difficult one. New York, the Islanders, Rangers, Jersey.
Yeah.
You know, so now this one is like this is a tough one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
My follow-up question to that is, do you think that there's a particular team or style that would do well on a road trip like this? Like the one that comes to my mind would be the Calgary Flames. You know, a Daryl Sutter type team that could frustrate teams like Carolina, Florida, Tampa.
Yeah, maybe because I guess the question is do you want to get into a track meet with them? Do you want to turn it into a big offensive game and just try and outscore them, or you know, do you shut things down a little more? Right?
Yeah.
You know, they're all extremely well coached.
Yeah.
All three teams are extremely well coached. You know, I'm not sure if you just don't want to run with them. You probably don't. You don't want to run with them and try and win that way.
Unless you're Colorado or maybe Toronto.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. In which case then, you know, maybe you do it, but yeah, I probably wouldn't want to be the kind of team that tries to match these guys goal for goal kind of thing, because I mean, you know, look at the teams and the players you're playing against. Yeah. I mean, you know, Jonathan Huberdeau might be the Hart Trophy winner this year.
Yeah.
Might also win the Selke.
Right.
And, you know, in Tampa, you've got all kinds of firepower. And with Carolina, I find it's just balanced, right? Yeah. Like everybody can chip in on that team. I mean, there's no like superstar on that team, I don't think. I mean,
Sebastian Aho.
He's not a superstar. He's a really good elite NHL player.
Yeah.
He's not a superstar.
Yeah, fair enough.
The other teams, probably you could say that they're boasting a guy who you could argue is a superstar in the league. So, yeah.
Yeah, for me, I was going to say the exact same thing. It reminds me of the California road trip because, when Los Angeles Kings was winning their cups, the Ducks were firmly in their cup window.
Yeah.
And San Jose Sharks, I mean, let's be honest. I honestly, that team, I don't know how they didn't win a cup.
Yeah, they're one of the best teams not to win a cup. Like, I think of them.
Would you go as far as the best team?
No, because I was thinking about this when Emil Francis died on the weekend.
Right.
Those Ranger teams that he put together.
Right.
They might have been the best teams
Yeah.
in the 70s. They might have been the best teams not to win a Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
Eddie Giacomin, Brad Park, Jean Rattel, Rod Gilbert.
Yeah.
They had some amazing talent on those teams.
Yeah.
And they just happened to be running into, the Canadians of the 70s and the Bruins of the early 70s.
Right.
Right. And
were they good?
They were okay. Yeah. Yeah. So to me, I still think, that might be one of the best teams not to win a cup. But San Jose's right there too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, we're going to be biased to our generation because San Jose is the one that I just saw constantly.
Are you saying I'm old? That's what you're saying. Yeah. That's what you're saying because that was like almost 50 years ago.
Yeah, well, that is what I'm saying. Yeah. Yeah. My great-great-grandmother told me that her grandmother told her about those teams in the 70s.
Yeah, okay, good. Yeah.
No, I mean, so Joe Thornton has been for most of his career, possibly my favorite skater in the NHL.
Okay.
And just the way that he plays the game and thinks the game and just does everything so smart, did everything so smart, was tough as nails, right? And didn't always bring it out, but every once in a while he would remind the world that he was 6'5" and 240 or whatever he was. And then also just, kind of coming out with his shirt off and bit of a beer gut hanging over his,
And who's he almost sometimes playing for now? Florida.
Right. Yeah, exactly. No, I know. It's funny because I thought he did the exact transformation, right? He went from cool hippie on the West Coast, right? To like going back to Toronto where he's from St. Thomas. So let's say Southern Ontario area.
Yeah.
Coming back. And then what do all old fogies do from Toronto? They go down to Florida for the winter.
That's right.
Yeah. So he went from cool West Coast to, hippie to Florida beach bum.
Yeah.
Yeah. The transformation is complete.
Wouldn't it be great if they won though and he was able to get his name on the cup? That would be wonderful.
I think so.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah. It's funny because we're not really talking about him a lot.
I saw Joe, right, because he's healthy scratch a lot of times.
No, I realize that.
I saw Joe play as a 15-year-old when he played for the St. Thomas Stars in Niagara Falls.
Yeah.
And he was 15 years old playing against guys who were 17, 18, 19 years old. And he was like, it wasn't close.
Yeah.
It wasn't close the year that the Sioux drafted him.
Yeah.
It wasn't close.
Yeah.
And ever since then, like he knows who I am now, right? And we talk because I went to see him play as a 15-year-old.
Yeah. Yeah. I knew a guy that played house league with him and said that even from house league, it was just so obvious that he was going to the NHL. He's just so much bigger, stronger, and faster and everything than anybody else. And anyways, he's been a likable guy to watch. Patrick Marleau has obviously been an incredibly likable guy to watch, right? It's just, it's been a likable team.
Patrick Marleau, a Hall of Famer. That's a good one. That's a really
great
good
question.
That's a really, really good one. Because do you get it just because of the sheer volume? Played the most games.
That's always the thing.
Never won anything. Never won anything. Never came close to really winning anything. Was never a first team All-Star or I don't think was ever a first or second team All-Star. Never won an individual award, but just showed up and played really hard and real well for a long, long time. Is that enough to get you in? I think probably by a lot of people's standards it is.
Yeah.
By mine, I'd have to think about that. Yeah. Anyways, we're going way off. We're going way off. Getting way out of our lane here.
I'll move on to the next question. Okay. Shall we? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
There are huge trades being rumored right now. Most have really fun storylines to go with them. There is JT Miller to Toronto, Marc-Andre Fleury back to Vegas, Jeff Chychrun to Florida, Brock Besser.
Jacob Chychrun. Jeff is his father. Did I write Jeff?
You wrote Jeff. As I was reading that, I was like, that's not right.
Oh, my God.
That's funny.
That is funny.
Well,
Jacob
one of us
Chychrun.
should have caught it. Okay. I did completely go through this. Okay. Jacob.
And I did that at like 11:30 last night just before I went to bed. So, okay.
Jacob Chychrun to Florida.
Yeah.
I like how you almost started making fun of me and then immediately went, uh-oh.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
Brock Besser to New Jersey. Claude Giroux to Colorado. Ooh, that felt weird. Claude Giroux. To Colorado. Yeah, I said it like
Claude Giroux.
Yeah, Giroux. Yeah. Is Steve Yzerman here?
That's your Bill Clinton imitation, isn't it?
That is my Bill Clinton imitation.
Steve Yzerman.
Yeah, that's right. Which one of these is going to happen and why?
Oh wow. Yeah. Well, JT Miller to Toronto seems to be picking up some steam, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it sure does seem to be picking up some steam.
But is that like, this is the thing that I've realized as we were joking about Twitter not being a real place, is that I realized that if you read enough things on Twitter saying this just makes sense or whatever, it starts to kind of implant that idea in your mind.
Yeah. That's how players, underrated players get overrated. Everybody calls them underrated for so long that you go, that guy's actually overrated now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So do you think that JT Miller is actually picking up steam? That's legitimate, or?
I think it is, depending on what the Jake Muzzin situation is for the Leafs.
That's exactly what I was going to get into
with respect to whether or not they can bury that salary on LTIR. Right. I think JT Miller is exactly what the Toronto Maple Leafs need.
Yeah.
He's they need somebody who's willing to go to war when it gets that way. And I just feel like JT Miller is, and I want to also point out that last week I said on the podcast that he's an unrestricted free agent after this year. Yeah. I stand corrected on that. He has a year left on his deal, which would make him probably even more of a catch at the deadline.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I feel like that one's I think that one's got some legs to it.
Yeah.
I think Jacob Chychrun is going somewhere.
Yeah. Is Jeff going with him?
Yeah. Jeff lives in Florida and actually works on the Florida Panthers broadcast. Yeah. And Jacob Chychrun to Florida would make sense.
Yeah.
Because that's where he's from originally.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it would be a cool story, and it would instantly make the Florida Panthers a very serious Stanley Cup contender.
Yeah.
Depending on what they want back. Like if Bill Armstrong wants Anton Lundell back, no.
Yeah.
But if they can make something work, I think that's a good one. Claude Giroux to Colorado, I think, he's going to pick where he goes, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think he said Colorado, St. Louis, can't remember where else he said. Minnesota, I think, is another one.
Right.
I think Minnesota could use him the most. Yeah. But that's one I think that could happen for sure.
It's funny that you said I think Minnesota could use him the most because, players like this, it's like debt, okay? When you don't need money, every bank wants to offer you money.
Right.
They all want to offer you your lines of credit and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
When you need a line of credit, no bank wants to offer you money.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, you're right that Minnesota could use him the most, but to me, that would make it the least desirable location for me, in the sense of, if you're leaving Philadelphia, you want a Stanley Cup. It's funny because you said JT Miller to Toronto, which was sort of the one that I was going to zero in on. And I think for much the same reasons. A few episodes ago, I said, if I were to pick a place for Claude Giroux based on no information, it would be Toronto. And it's for the exact same reasons. Whenever you do a trade like this, in my opinion, you just, basically, it's like, what can guarantee you a Stanley Cup as much as anything can guarantee you a Stanley Cup? And to your point, Jacob Chychrun to Florida, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Right? Like as much as anything can guarantee you a Stanley Cup, that can guarantee you a Stanley Cup. It's kind of the reason why I think that Colorado should be looking at goaltending, because their goaltending is good, but is it like guaranteed Stanley Cup good?
No, but it doesn't need to be great. I've said this.
Yeah, but I hate that it doesn't need to be.
Well, I don't care if you hate it. It doesn't need to be.
Okay.
You want to start arguing?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I just don't think the Colorado needs, they don't need Andrei Vasilevsky. I mean, Tampa might not need Andrei Vasilevsky either, but they don't need him. They don't need him to be lights out. They just need him to be good.
Right.
And he's actually been pretty good for them lately.
The thing is that
Darcy Kemper, I mean, when I say he,
I
Kemper,
realize that. Andrei Vasilevsky last year in the playoffs led all goalies in goals saved above expected.
Right.
Meaning that there was a lot of expected goals piled up against him.
See, I don't get that. Maybe they should just expect fewer goals. Just expect fewer goals. That's what I don't get about this goals expected over expected this and that.
It's based on a league average.
If the guy's getting way more goals than you expect, adjust your expectations. Expect them to score more.
Well, but that is how the expectations are created, okay. and then it's a league average, and then it's
Yeah, I don't care. This all scares me, and I don't like it. I don't like it.
But my point is that what this says, and you can trust me on this one.
Okay? I can.
I have an honest face.
Okay.
Okay. What this
That's one way to describe it.
I've got my hair greased back. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I've got a toothpick in my mouth. What this all says is that what this all says is that they actually are leaning on Vasilevsky to be a good goaltender.
Wasn't Marc-Andre Fleury to Chicago to Vegas one of those?
Yeah,
one of those
I said
ones?
it.
Did you say that?
I did say it.
Yeah, that's another biggie too, right?
I got a follow-up question to that.
What?
You want to hear it?
Yep.
If Marc-Andre Fleury goes to Vegas, what picture will Alan Walsh tweet?
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's going to Vegas because I mean
like
Lehner has stepped up. So
Lehner's an excellent goaltender.
He is.
Like Vegas lost the series because they decided to go back to Marc-Andre Fleury.
I can't remember
against Montreal.
Far. Yeah.
I'm telling you 100%.
Well,
Lehner stoned them.
Well, and that giveaway was the turning point in the series. That was the turning point in the series.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the one where, you know what I mean about Darcy Kemper when I say he just can't lose it for you?
Right.
That's exactly what I mean.
Right.
Darcy Kemper can't make a play like that.
Yeah.
He just has to be good and not do stuff like that.
I hear you, but my point is that when you're talking about building a Stanley Cup team, just why wouldn't you go for the sure thing? Why wouldn't you, if you're Colorado and you've got strong defense, you've got strong forwards, essentially up and down the lineup, because their depth is at worst league average, right?
Their depth, yeah, it's better than.
Yeah, but that's why I say at worst, at absolute worst, their depth is league average, and then their top end talent is excellent, right? Then why wouldn't, instead of bringing in Claude Giroux and only being able to play him 15 minutes a night, right? Why not bring in a guy that plays 60 minutes a night and could essentially bring your chances from good to almost guaranteed? Mm-hmm. That's why I bring up goaltending.
Okay.
But that being said, there's only so many goalies in the league that can do that for your team.
Yep.
And there's very few of them. Yeah, I think that we did that one to death a little bit.
Okay.
I agree with you. JT Miller to Toronto. The only hitch in that is if they aren't able to bury all of Muzzin's contract on LTIR and have to bring in a defenseman, because apparently they're looking very hard for a defenseman right now.
Yeah.
Then that becomes impossible to swallow.
I think we're going to talk about some guys that I think you could get for
a song.
Not a song, but for less than what you'd pay for, say, Ben Sherratt.
How'd you come up with that name?
Oh, I don't know.
It's only number 2 on TSN's trade bait board at this point. Yeah.
Hi, everybody. Ken Campbell here. Well, this is episode 9 of our little podcast that Dylan and I have going here, and we're having a lot of fun doing it. We hope you're having fun listening to it. And we hope you're sticking around and supporting us. And there are several ways you can do that. Obviously, by coming back and listening and liking and continuing to support us that way is a good way. Another way is to go to mybookie.com. They're a sponsor of the podcast. They're helping us with some of the expenses putting this together. And if you're inclined to bet on hockey or any other sport, give it a shot at mybookie.com. They have a double deposit bonus up to $1,000. But you do have to use the promo code Hockey Unfiltered, all one word. And that way they know that you've been directed to them through our podcast, and they might be more inclined to continue to support us. So it's a great way to put money down on games if you do that, and it's a great way to support us as well. You can put some money down on Colorado or Tampa for the Stanley Cup. They're obviously the two favorites right now. And you get the double deposit up to $1,000. So why not give it a shot at mybookie.com. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with mybookie.com.
Yeah. Well, what team is going to be the biggest seller at the deadline?
Well, I can't help but think that when you get a guy as decisive as Jim Rutherford is,
right?
Like he just decides and does it, right?
Yep.
He doesn't get, paralyzation from overanalyzation. That doesn't happen with him.
Right.
He decides what he wants to do and he goes and does it, and he's decisive and bold and just gets it done, right?
Right.
So if you've got JT Miller out there, you've got maybe Connor Garland. He seems to be a guy that's, even though he's got 4 years left at 4 point something, I think, or 3 years left at 4 point something.
Right.
He seems to be a guy that seems to be picking up steam. You've got those guys. Maybe you've got a Yaroslav Halak if he waves his no move. He could. I think Vancouver could be very, very active. But I think the team that, to me, that really could be making a lot of moves is Philadelphia.
Right.
And nobody would have ever thought that before this year.
No.
But they have a ton of guys. Oh, well, see, but Vancouver, then there's the Besser thing too, right? Brock Besser.
Yeah.
Brock Besser. So, I mean, if you've got Brock Besser and JT Miller and you're moving both of those guys, even one of those guys, that's seismic, right? And then Connor Garland maybe, and then, whatever, you move down the line. But Philadelphia, I mean, they've got a ton of contracts that are expiring, including Claude Giroux's.
Yeah.
So I think they could be really, really active as well.
Yeah.
As a seller.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so you mentioned JT Miller and Brock Besser as being two seismic moves.
Yeah.
And it's true that it's very rare that a team will move two top six players.
Especially neither of whom have expiring Oh, no. Well, I mean, Besser has an expiring contract,
right,
but it's restricted free agent with arbitration rights. Yeah. So you've got two guys who are not walking away at the end of the season.
Right. So you're going from talking about two trades for top six players. I'm going to take a different tack and talk about a team that arguably has no top six players to trade.
Arizona.
I was going to say Montreal.
Oh, Montreal. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, Arizona, the thing is that what was their trade? Carter Hutton for future considerations.
Yeah.
Right. Like they haven't really started to do anything yet.
I mean, they've got Phil Kessel that's going to move.
Oh no, I know that they've got players that are going to move.
I mean, they've made some, and I mean, they traded Oliver Ekman-Larsson, before the season.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I get that, but my point is that when Montreal traded Tyler Toffoli, it said that before the trade deadline, it would have been hard to say Montreal. Yep. Well, it's still before the trade deadline, but it would have been hard to say Montreal because they have so few expiring free agent contracts.
Right.
Now, it's clear that everyone's on the table because Jeff Petrie is on the TSN trade bait list.
Of course he is. Why wouldn't he be?
Well, but I'm just saying because he's got like 4 years left on the contract, right?
Yeah.
He's on the TSN trade bait list. Ben Sherrod is an obvious one. Brett Kulak is an expiring free agent, right? Brendan Gallagher has said publicly that he's open to moving.
Yep.
Which is the hockey equivalent of screw you guys, I'm going home.
Well, no, I think he's saying I'd like to move. He doesn't have much say in the matter because he's got a long contract that might not be palatable to a lot of teams.
Right. But my point is to say is this, that once Tyler Toffoli was traded, and it was a reasonable price, it wasn't like a huge return. It wasn't like Calgary broke the bank.
Nope.
Once Montreal said that that's the price for Tyler Toffoli, they basically said everybody's on the table and just come with your best offer.
Yeah,
and
that
probably just take it.
like I said last week, that to me was a huge statement because they were saying it's a rebuild.
Yeah,
it's a rebuild. It's a tear down and a rebuild.
Yeah,
because you've got a guy that has 2 years left at 4 point whatever he was at.
Yeah, and was a leader on the team.
Yeah,
and talked about wanting to be part of the solution as opposed to saying I'm happy to get out of here, right? And so I mean, if you've got Ben Sherratt's on the table, Jeff Petry's on the table, you got to think that if Joel Edmondson can get himself back in and healthy, he's on the table. So what? And Brett Kulak is expiring, unrestricted free agent. He's got to be on the table. So your top 4 defensemen are all on the table.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's insane.
Yeah. So you get a bunch of picks and futures for all of that.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, have you ever seen a team that could really legitimately move all of their top 4 defensemen?
Philly might be able to this year. Well, not all of them. Not all of them. I mean, Provorov's not going anywhere, but
no.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Romanov's not going anywhere in Montreal, but
right.
Similarly. So let's move on to that. Who is going to be this year's under the radar trade that will end up looking really good come playoff time?
I always like this because I remember in 2017-18, there's the trade deadline and everything's so big, and then Washington trades for Michael Kempny.
Right.
And he ends up being the difference maker on a Stanley Cup team.
Right.
I guess it was might have been 2014 when LA got Michael Handzus.
Right.
Like those kinds of guys, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everybody's, killing themselves and tripping all over themselves and trading first round picks and prospects and everything for these big ticket guys.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it just ends up being one of these under the radar guys who comes in and solidifies everything.
Yeah.
And, you move right along and away you go, right? For me, a guy like that is a guy like Justin Braun.
Right.
In Philadelphia.
Yeah.
I mean, I know people like Ben Sherratt and he's really highly regarded.
Frankly, I don't know people that like Ben Sherratt. But okay.
No, but I mean, there are a lot of people who are pretty high on what Ben Sherratt could get back.
Yeah.
To me, I think you get Justin Braun for a lot less.
Yeah.
And I don't know that you're downgrading even at all.
Yeah.
They're pretty similar.
Yeah.
I don't see a lot of difference there.
Yeah.
And if you can get a guy like that on your third pairing, I mean, that's a great ad in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. Further to your point, actually contrary to your point, I should say.
Okay.
Tampa Bay has been exceptionally good at identifying bigger name guys that they do trade their first round picks for. David Savard, right? Yeah. Ryan McDonough, right? As 2 examples of Tampa Bay making big trades that still had big impacts on their team. And even Blake Coleman, right, was another he was a trade deadline acquisition, I believe.
Yep.
So
I don't know if it was at the deadline, but it might have been. It might have been, yeah.
Blake Coleman was one of those guys that sort of the stats community was all a titter about, right?
Yeah.
And he proved his worth, right?
Mm-hmm.
He proved his worth in a very big way.
Absolutely.
But to your point, you're right that a lot of times those little additions on the periphery wind up making a very big impact in the playoffs. I think about even Montreal's 2014 run, Mike Weaver, who was a very whatever pickup, wound up being a key defenseman playing middle pair minutes.
Big anti-vaxxer.
I know. I'm well aware, actually, as we almost worked on a story about that together.
Yeah.
I'm very well aware of that. Mm-hmm. But my answer is so similar to yours that it just sucks. but it's the same
but,
team
yeah.
and it's the same ideology. And it's Rasmus Ristolainen.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, the reason why people want Ben Sherratt is because they want to see somebody be an absolute piece of garbage to the other team and get away with it often, right? And that's Rasmus Ristolainen. And now here's where it gets interesting, because the advanced metrics community has hated Ristolainen for his whole career.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They've always said that he's garbage. But here's the deal on Philadelphia right now, which granted is a terrible team. At 5 versus 5, Ristolainen is the third best defenseman on the team in Corsi for percentage, goals for percentage, expected goals for percentage, and points per 60. So he's doing fine on a bad team. Not good. His numbers still look bad, but he's doing above average on a bad team for all of those things. He has the third highest rate of defensive zone draws for defensemen on his team. He's mean. He's big. Mm-hmm. And if you can put him into, think about Ottawa's run a few years ago where Karlsson was obviously at the top of his game, but Dion Phaneuf was contributing a lot on the offensive side of the puck. At the end of the day, Ristolainen is just a Finnish Ben Sherratt, right? Mm. He's just this big, mean guy. And Ben Sherratt is an offensive defenseman at heart who is being miscast as a defensive defenseman because he cross-checks people in front of the net, and that looks really good for the eye test, right? And that's essentially what Ristolainen is. He keeps on being used. In Buffalo, he was constantly used defensively. He was supposed to be the conscience that would help Dahlin.
Rasmus Dahlin.
Dahlin develop. He was supposed to be the conscience. But come on, man. It's the same thing with Dion Phaneuf in Toronto. He was supposed to be the defensive defenseman. He was never a defensive defenseman in his career. When did he play well? Is when they finally just said, hey, you know what? Go to the net, take a slap shot.
Yeah.
That's all we want from you. Go to the net, take a slap shot, hit somebody, drop the gloves. That's all we need. And so, yeah, the narrative about Ristolainen is that he sucks, but he's actually not that bad. And the narrative around Ben Sherratt is that he's amazing.
And he's not that good.
Not that good.
Yeah.
So...
Yep.
Instead of your first round plus for Ben Sherratt, take your third round and maybe less for Ristolainen. Wow. Because guaranteed he's not asking for much.
Yeah.
Guaranteed they're not asking for much.
Both expiring contracts. So.
Both expiring contracts. Yeah. Okay, so breaking news. Is it time to start worrying about Toronto's goaltending?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, don't you think?
I think you should expand.
Well... I mean, Jack Campbell was a Vezina Trophy finalist for his first 20 starts.
Correct.
Maybe the guy who would win if you were picking it early on.
Yep.
His last 17 starts, save percentage has been .894.
Yeah.
He hasn't been good. He hasn't been good lately.
Yeah.
Like last night against Columbus, they need a save, and he couldn't give him one.
Right.
And I realized that in overtime, you got Patrick Laine in a pretty decent scoring area, which is a recipe for disaster for any goalie. Yeah, that's not going to
be very helpful for you.
But over the glove, he made himself small, I mean, and to your point about Auston Mathews' defensive play, he left a gap like there was no tomorrow on Patrick Laine. You have to realize that that's Patrick Laine that has the puck in the middle of the ice. In the high slot, you've got to close that gap. But to me, what would worry me about Jack Campbell is, first of all, because Toronto, and secondly, I mean, the guy is so hard on himself. Like, he just gets really, really down on himself when he feels like he's let the team down. And
he does, yeah.
Yeah, no, he's really hard on himself. And I don't know that that's good for his long-term
viability.
Yeah. And like, I mean, what if he's not what he was the first half of the season? What if he's just Jack Campbell? And this is what he is. Like, what a spot to be in. Like, you were all, beginning of the year, everybody's like, how are they going to re-sign Jack Campbell? Well, they're going to have to break the bank and they're going to have to sign him to this long-term deal and everything. And now it's like, is this guy even the answer? Like, I mean, everybody almost everybody's guessing about goaltending most of the time.
True.
Unless you have, Andrei Vasilevsky or, one at Carey Price at his prime, then
was a
and
guess.
Tuukka Rask. I mean, Boston didn't have to worry about goaltending for 10 years.
Yeah.
Because they had Tuukka Rask.
Yeah.
Right. But that seems to be a smaller exception to the rule. Most people are just guessing about goaltending. And I don't know. Like, what if he's not? What if he's not? What if he's just Jack Campbell, the guy who is okay and really good sometimes, but can really fall apart at times? I
was just looking over the list for the last 10 games for goals saved above expected, which I know you love. Mm-hmm. And Jack Campbell is number 61 in the league.
Wow.
For the last 10 games.
So just expect him to save fewer goals. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. For Jack, apparently you should.
Just go, we expect you to save this many. You're not saving them.
Yeah.
So we're not going to expect you to save as many. That's sort of where I'm going.
I hear you, but
he's 61st?
61st.
In the whole league?
The whole league.
Wow. How about among starters? He's probably like right down there, right?
I mean, that would put him right down there.
Yeah.
Right. If I were to take the top 32 goalies. But my point is that you're right. It's been exceptionally bad. The problem is I don't see an option. Anton Khudobin is on the trade bait list for TSN. And he had a good playoff run 2 years ago. He had an excellent playoff run 2 years ago.
Oh, with Dallas? Yeah, he was outstanding.
Yeah. He's a goalie that I like a lot. Peter Mrazek, to your point about Jack Campbell against the Blues, Peter Mrazek didn't exactly look great against the Habs.
Detroit, when he was in Detroit,
yeah,
they had a nickname for him.
What's that?
Peter Erratic. That's what they called him in Detroit.
Oh, that's perfect.
Not his teammates, but
no,
more of the upper management types.
No, that's a perfect nickname for him.
Yeah.
But he let's put it this way. How many times have the Habs put up 5 goals in a game this year?
Yeah.
It's that's not a good look for you, right? So I don't know that it's time to start worrying about goaltending. I hear you on the psychological side of things.
Especially when you had Freddie Anderson, who you couldn't count on in the playoffs for so long.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Like, there's nothing that can submarine a team's Stanley Cup hopes like subpar goaltending. Like, it can just wreck you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. Jack Campbell is a guy whose fundamental positioning is very sound for the most part. He's a little bit older school in the sense that he doesn't just drop and block. He uses different save selections, but for the most part, I don't care how you stop the puck, but the one thing that never goes out of style is being in the right place to stop the puck, right? And so the fact is that a lot of pucks that I've seen him not stop, and now I haven't seen every game, they go through him.
Right. That's not good, is it?
In theory, that's the most fixable problem.
Really?
In theory.
Okay, yeah.
In practice, I've seen crazy stuff trying to fix it, right? Stefan Waite had Carey Price have 2 blockers, one on either hand, and a stick held in between them. And he was doing all of his moves with these 2 blockers that were supposed to hold his elbows in for his movements because his elbows were spreading out and creating holes.
7-hole, yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And so in theory, if you're there, you should be able to have a good chance at stopping it. So it's bizarre to see these pucks going through him. And to your point, it makes it seem like it's psychological. Now, here's the problem. I believe Toronto tried to hire Dusty Emu as a goalie coach.
Yeah, they did. But it turned out some of his social media things I think were
liked a lot of the insurrection stuff in the States.
Right. And so that was that
which is not ideal.
That submarined him. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But ultimately Dusty Emu is the one who reclaimed Jack Campbell's career.
Well, I also think Bill Ranford had a lot to do with that too.
Right. But I think from the psychological side.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because the first part for Jack Campbell was getting him to believe in himself again.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So you got to find somebody like that then.
Well,
and if it's not him, you got to find someone like him.
But I mean, you know, you look and the guy's Jack Campbell's 29.
Yeah.
He had his 100th NHL start this year.
Yeah.
It's not a lot of starts for a guy who's been around that long. You know?
Yeah. If he was Koskinen, he would have gotten a long-term contract by now.
I'd be nervous. I would be nervous if I were Toronto.
I would be nervous, but I mean, that being said, like, this is the thing, right? Is that every goalie stumbles. Now, when Lundqvist was on the Rangers, almost every year there was is there a goalie controversy in New York?
Yeah.
Right? Almost every year his backup pushed him at one point or another, but it always came back to Hank right up until the day that it didn't, but he was like 38 at that point, right? So goalies stumble. It's not an uncommon thing. And I guess now we'll just see who Jack is.
Yeah, goalies stumble, but this is like bordering on faceplant.
But Carey Price was face planting all last year.
Yeah.
He was a way below league average goalie last year in the regular season.
Yeah, but he's Carey Price.
Right, exactly. And so, yes, with Henrik Lundqvist, that was my point with Lundqvist as well, but I'm tired of using Habs analogies.
Right.
That's my point with Henrik Lundqvist is that, yes, you can draw off of the fact that you know that he's Hank. Well, you know that Price is Price.
I'm even going to go back way further to the 40s. To the 40s.
Yeah. When you were a young man of 38.
Don't do that. Does that make you feel like a big man when you say stuff like that? No. Or okay. Ageism. No. See, because I've read about hockey history a little bit.
Oh, okay.
But
I see.
There was Bill Durnan.
Yeah.
And there was Turk Broda. The two preeminent goalies in the NHL.
Yeah.
Bill Durnan won the Vezina every year.
Yeah.
And Turk Broda won all the Stanley Cups.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So like Broda, he'd come into camp and, you know, Conn Smythe would always be pissed off at him because he was fat and out of shape and stuff. And and then in the playoffs, he'd be lights out, right?
Round into form.
Bill Durnan was the other way around.
Yeah.
He was amazing, ambidextrous, could catch with either hand.
Right. Yeah.
And was great in the regular season, but then, you know, would kind of come up lame not lame, but a little short in the playoffs. So So to your point, I mean, maybe when they drop the puck for real on May 1st or whenever the playoffs start this year, maybe Jack Campbell transforms, but we don't have any evidence to support that because there's no body of work. There's no body of work.
I guess my bottom line would be to say here, yes, you should be worried about goaltending. If you're a Leafs fan, you should. 100% at this point. But there are no better options out there because Braden Holtby is almost as bad as him in goals saved above expected at 5 versus 5.
Oh, yeah.
And Craig Anderson, same thing. Anton Khudobin, same thing. None of these guys are looking particularly good in the last 10 games.
What about Marc-Andre Fleury, though? What about him?
Yeah, it's a big price tag.
What about Yaroslav Halak?
So the Leafs are going to trade for JT Miller, Marc-Andre Fleury.
But maybe you pivot. Maybe you pivot and you say, well, you know, we need, you know, I mean, to your point, right? You're like, well, if you've identified that this group is a special group that has the potential to really go deep in the playoffs and win a Stanley Cup, then why don't you do it?
Yeah. Marc-Andre Fleury's looking fine, just slightly above league average. So maybe, you know, he's got a history of making mistakes in the playoffs as well.
Yes.
Right. And it's not just Montreal, Vegas.
Yeah.
This goes back to his Pittsburgh days.
Well, it goes back to the World Juniors.
Yeah, that's right.
Gold medal game of the World Juniors.
Yeah, that's right.
Bonks it off of Braden Coburn's back. But clearing attempt and they end up scoring and lose the game.
Yeah. Here's the thing, Marc-Andre. We're going to trade for you, but come playoff time, we're sticking bungee cords on the back of your pants and sticking them next to the crossbar.
That was the turning point in the series.
Yeah.
Last year. That was a turning point.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that it's no coincidence that that Pittsburgh came up short for the Stanley Cup so many times until Matt Murray was playing for them.
Well, yeah, but the second Stanley Cup in 2017.
Yeah.
They were both instrumental.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fleury got them through the first half of the playoffs, and Matt Murray got them through the second half of the playoffs.
Right.
And without both of those guys, like, in fact, I actually emailed the league because I was voting. No, I did. I emailed the league because I was voting I was one of the voters for the Conn Smythe, and I said, is there any way I can make a dual ballot, like they share it?
Right.
And the league was like, no.
Because goalies used to share the Vezina.
Well,
the Vezina used to be assigned to the team with the best.
Right, but you had to play a certain number of games. Right. Yeah. So, and that's the way they do it with the Jennings now, right?
Right, yeah.
Like you have to play a certain number of games.
Yeah.
But like I was like in 2017, I was like, I think these guys together have been the most valuable player.
Yeah.
Because Matt Murray got hurt at the beginning of the playoffs, and Marc-Andre Fleury was lights out for 2 rounds. And then he faltered, and then Matt Murray jumped in, and he brought them the rest of the way. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. Anything else you want to talk about before we get out of here?
No. Nathan McKinnon should have been suspended. I'm sorry.
Oh, big time. 100%.
Like, not for 10 games, but like a game or two, can't you? Like, like, come on.
Yeah, even beyond intent, right? Because intent does matter. It looked like...
These guys are the best hockey players in the world. You're trying to tell me that... come on.
Okay, fair enough. They can hit a little puck this big, and then they can't.
Mike Camilleri told me that he could identify any player in the league by looking at his stick pattern. Clayton Keller, if you say a name, an NHL player's name to Clayton Keller, he'll tell you which way he shoots and what kind of stick he uses. These guys are the best because they are so aware,
right?
And they know everything that's going on around them.
Well, tell that to Mathews' teeth.
To suggest, skating into the crossbar. Yeah. But to suggest that I don't buy it. I don't buy it. Well, I think he was frustrated, and he took a swing, and he did a big oopsie. And so
he's got a history of getting PO'd like that as well, right? So, look, I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying that whether it was a mistake or wasn't a mistake, and maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, it doesn't matter. You hit a linesman, and
you
the
were
league
reckless.
should be
like, so it's reckless.
A high sticking is always a high sticking.
I mean, I just love the NHL's excuse.
Right.
Well, he was actually trying to tomahawk chop a player.
Oh,
and the referee got in the path, and that's what happened. So we're all good here.
Yeah. It's totally fine to do that.
Absurd.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying he should have gotten Antoine Vermette. No. Because when you look at Antoine Vermette was way worse. Like, he looked at the guy and he two-handed him. I don't think this deserved that, but I can't see why you just don't say to Nathan McKinnon, like, hey, 2 games, buddy, because you have to learn that this isn't cool.
I mean, couldn't you argue that it should be 2 games to outside of the play of the outside of the whistles to be tomahawking a player as well?
Yeah, well, I mean, it wasn't that bad. But even if it's just a makeup for the when he drilled Nolan Patrick in the head. I mean, even if you're just making up for that, which was 4 days before.
Right.
So, anyways.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much for sticking around. Please subscribe to kencampbell.substack.com. You can get this podcast and other writing directly into your inbox. Please, if you like this episode, leave a review, leave a rating on Apple Podcasts or YouTube or wherever else you're watching. We read the comments. We will respond even on YouTube. And, stick around for more episodes.